Welcome to House Money, the podcast that cuts through the noise for buyers, sellers, and agents along the Wasatch Front and beyond. Together, we dive into unfiltered, no-nonsense insights to help you win in today's market, whether you're buying your first home, selling smart, or stepping up as an agent. No fluff, just real strategies that work. This is House Money. Welcome back to another episode of House Money. I am your host, Rychen Jones. I am an associate broker and realtor here in the greater Salt Lake area. Glad you are here with us, and I am excited about this episode. I've got my good friend, Travis Maddox, here with me. What we do here is we talk about how consumers, buyers or sellers, can win in this market. And if you are an agent, I hope you're listening as well, because we are unapologetic here in how we do things. And what I mean by that is it's time for us as real estate agents to step up and be better and be more professional. And if you're not in that space, I hope you have a desire to be in that space, because you are going to get left behind if you're not at a high professional level with how you are treating your clients and, quite frankly, how you're interacting with other agents. And that's what I want to bring on and talk to Travis about today. Travis made a great post on Facebook. So by way of introduction, Travis Maddox is with Edge Homes here in the greater Salt Lake area and is a fantastic builder's agent. So Travis, I'm going to let you introduce yourself from there, and then we'll jump in here.
Thanks, Rychen. I'm excited to be here. It's always fun when you and I get to chatting,
Yeah.
especially about unapologetic.
Yeah. Tell us kind of what you've been doing the last couple of years with Edge Homes.
So I started selling with Edge Homes December of 2019, right before COVID hit. Before that, I was an escrow officer for about a year, 2 years maybe. But the last 5 years have been dedicated just to new construction and just Edge Homes.
Yeah. And what I love about you is you've basically been around the real estate business your whole life. And so this is not new to you in terms of seeing markets change. I mean, you've been selling for 5 years, but you've seen all the markets. Your family's been in real estate. You've seen the Great Recession and all the foreclosures and things like that. So I love that you have that perspective. The number one mistake that buyers agents and buyers make when they are looking at new construction. So I guess that's my first question is, what is the biggest mistake that agents and buyers agents make when they come out to see you at Edge Homes or any other builder? What is that mistake?
Yeah. I would say the number one mistake that buyers agents make, to me, it's got to be setting expectations with the buyers prior to coming out to a model home, coming out to one of our spec homes. Just setting the right expectations with the buyers can help set up the entire transaction. Just setting the right expectations as far as pricing and what to expect from the home.
So what does that look like when I bring my buyer out and we meet at the model home? When you talk about setting expectations, your post was specifically about when buyers walk into a model home, what they see is, this is your best stuff, right? This is Edge Homes' best stuff, all the upgrades, and talk about that a little bit, because I think that's where the mistake comes in from buyers and agents.
Yeah. So our model homes, it is what we can do, right? We absolutely can do it, but we tend to put the most durable, which is usually the most expensive flooring, countertops, cabinets, railings. I mean, we've got townhomes in the exchange that are model homes. We've had those probably close to 10 years now, and they're still in great condition. People walk in, and when I tell them, hey, this is an 8 to 10-year-old home, they're shocked because it still looks new, even though it's had tens of thousands of people through it.
Yeah.
But that also comes at a price, right? Sure. Those townhomes typically the model homes are going to have about $50,000 worth of upgrades. Most people will put $20,000 to $30,000 worth of upgrades into their townhome when they're building.
Yeah. What does that do for a buyer? They walk in the model home, they love it. They're like, oh my gosh, like I would buy this, I would build this exact model right now. And then they find out what? They
find out it's quite a bit more expensive than they were anticipating spending.
Yeah. And I think that as a buyer's agent, one of my rules is I will not show you a house that you cannot afford. And I think most buyers agents know that inherently, but I think we forget that too many times when we walk into a new construction home. Like, that same rule should apply. And I think that's what you're talking about as far as setting expectations is, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, let's go see this new construction townhouse or single family home or whatever it is. I just need you to understand that, like, what you're going to see is all of the upgrades that are possible. And I need you to understand that all of these upgrades may not fit within your budget. We can still build you a fantastic house within your budget, but I need you to know that going in. Buying a house is emotional anyway. The last thing we need is for our buyers to walk into a house, a model home even, love it, and then be like, oh, I can't get that. Okay. everything else they're going to see or think about is going to be compared to that model home that all of a sudden you just told them they can't have.
Yeah. Everybody makes some sort of concession when they build, right? It can't be a perfect home. I don't think I've ever sold a perfect home that fit every single one of a buyer's needs.
Mm-hmm.
My dad just finished building a home. It's like a $1.8 million home, beautiful home. He'd been living in it for a week and he was like, oh man, I wish I did this different, this different, this different. Right.
Yeah.
So even if there's little budget, like there's going to be things that you can add in the future or things that aren't perfect about it.
That's so funny you say that. My parents built their, I guess I would say it's their retirement home. You know, it's back in Oregon. It's on 2 acres out in the country sort of thing. Custom build, and literally they hadn't even moved in yet. And my mom was telling me the different things that she would do differently. I'm like, you haven't even moved into this house yet. Like you're already telling me things that you would do differently. So I hear you on that. And then, like you said, we can always change cosmetic things.
Yes.
Changing things like knocking down walls or, rerunning venting. Yeah, it could probably be done, I guess. Is it cost efficient or effective? Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where and we'll get into this, working together, me as a buyer's agent, you as the builder's agent, working together as a team to help a buyer build the home they love, that they can love, while keeping it in their budget, but also helping them understand that, there are things you can swap out here and there as, styles change or when things wear out, but you need to get some things right. And that's going to be space, layout, location, things that you can't change. What's one of the, from a buyer's perspective, what are things that are maybe most surprising to a buyer in terms of what they cost? They walk into a model home and they love this feature, and they're most caught off guard by what that particular feature costs.
The first one that comes to mind is railing. So Edge Homes, we're super, super well known for our big, tall 2-story great rooms. Even in our multifamily, like our townhomes, they've got these big, tall, open to above rooms. And then you've got beautiful stairs. Standard, it's a half wall, which isn't the most attractive. However, adding railing on a townhome, you're usually going to be about $4,500. And people are just like, wait, I'm going to spend 1% of the home's overall base price on just railing? Yeah. And please do spend the money on railing because it makes the home feel so much nicer.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I own and I built 2 Edge townhomes. And I went in the design center and I had been in enough models and I had seen enough, resale homes to know, like, to feel the difference. And that was the one thing I was willing to pay for the railing because it just makes a big difference. But you're right. Like those design center costs are adding up and you're like, if I got to cut somewhere and I need to cut $4,500 into $1,500, like, is it going to be the railing or something else? But I'm glad I did it because the railing looks fantastic.
Yeah. I tell people to rely on their buyer's agent, like yourself, to talk about what upgrades make sense and what ones don't, as far as if they're looking to resell this at any point.
Yeah. I think that transitions into how you and I work together with a buyer that I bring, out to your community. I see it as Travis represents the builder. Yes. Travis' interests are representing the builder, fighting for the builder, things like that. But unlike maybe like a regular retail sale, I see you as an extension of my team, just the same as I see my lender as an extension of my team, my home inspector, my title company. And I feel like too many agents may still see you as like the adversary, like as the thing standing between me and a paycheck or me and my buyer buying a house. And that's sad because especially with new construction, it needs to be, hey, we're all on the same. Yes, you have, the builder's name on your name tag, but we're all on the same team here. And talk to me about how a buyer's agent can work best with a builder's agent.
That's a great question. Every builder is different. And I would go out on a limb and say that Edge is the most Edge is the most agent-friendly builder in the state. Last year, Edge Homes did just about 1,400 transactions. 97% of them were represented by a buyer's agent. Edge realizes that those buyer's agent relationships are what is going to carry us through a downturn, right? As far as establishing a relationship, I think it's however you establish a relationship with your lender, with your title, your inspectors. You get to know how somebody works by working with them. You get to know how to interact with them, how to communicate with them, whether it's text, phone call, email, by working with them, by talking with them, by going to lunch with them, by going to events with them. You got to get to know the person in order to trust the person, is my opinion. I think trust is built and earned, not just given, right?
So how do you, as a builder's agent, then, how do you ensure that you're not the agents you're partnering with, the buyer's agents you're working with? How do you ensure that you're working with them effectively, but not feeling like you're stepping on their toes with their client, with their buyer?
Great question. Buyer's agents, everybody's a little bit different. There's a couple that I work with where they want me there as the information giver, meaning, hey, Travis, how much is the HOA again? Or Travis, how much is this lot or this floor plan base price? Like, I'm specifically edge, right? There's other agents who rely on me to help close their buyers, to help follow up with their buyers, whether it's doing a video walkthrough after the fact that you could send to them. I will work with you however you work best.
And then when we've walked through a number of homes with various clients,
Yeah.
and when I walk out to a new construction community, I understand and I know that I don't know that community as well as you do. I don't know the houses as well as you do. The upgrades, the specs, the HOA. It's like there's things I do know because I do my research ahead of time about a community. But I feel like as a buyer's agent, if I'm not willing to cede some of that, not control, but cede some of that knowledge and opportunity for you to help my buyer understand what you have available, I'm doing them a disservice because I don't know the community as well as you do, or the homes, or the options, or the prices. Like I would be lying to my client if I said, hey, we're going to talk and then we're going to like go negotiate with Travis and see if we can get a good deal here. But like, don't say anything to him because like he represents the builder, he represents the seller. I just feel like that's almost like realtor malpractice on new construction.
I would absolutely agree, especially when I'm first establishing a relationship with a buyer's agent. There's almost this distrust strictly because I'm a builder's agent. And I get it.
Right.
There's a lot of builder's agents out there who don't love working with buyer's agents. I don't even sit model homes. I work exclusively with buyer's agents for my business. And as you said earlier, I've been in and around the industry my entire life. This is a long-term thing. I tried going to college. I got my associates. It was great. But then at the end of the day, I know what I want to do. And that's a life of real estate.
Yeah. And I agree. As I see you work, correct me if I'm wrong, but I watch your model of business and what I see is that, yes, the buyer is the end user, the end client, but I see your business model as me as the buyer's agent. I am really your client.
Yeah.
And because that's the way it is, yes, you're going to take very good care of my buyer because they are my client, but your role, your focus is to make sure that I am your client, I am well taken care of, I'm happy. You're treating me as if I'm the buyer, if you will, but I'm the buyer's agent because that's your job. Am I incorrect in that?
You're spot on. In my mind, the buyer is Edge's client more than it is my client. The buyer is your client and Edge's client way more than it's mine. My goal is for them to have a great transaction so that they refer you one of their friends and you bring their friend to me and we get them living next door or something. Yeah. Right.
Take us through what an ideal transaction looks like. You got a great buyer's agent. You're a great builder's agent. We bring you a qualified buyer. We're looking around. What does a great transaction look like from the moment we show up to the model home and say, hey, Travis, this is Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. We've talked a little bit about what their price point is. They're looking at single family homes in this price range. Take us through what that looks like from I introduce you to my buyer to we're celebrating and handing them keys at the closing table.
Yeah. So in my mind, you and I have already spoken. We've already established what your client's looking for, whether it's over phone, text, or email. We've kind of gone through and said, hey, they're looking for A, B, and C in this area. What have you got? Right. So now we're in the model home. I typically like to start, we sit down and we just ask questions. We try to understand why they're moving, what doesn't work about their current home or their current living situation, and what are they trying to improve? Because to me, the biggest competition that I have, I wouldn't even say it's resale homes or other builders. It's the home that they're currently living in, especially right now because rates are typically higher. So
right.
If somebody's
they're holding on to that rate like a sacred cow, and they better have a really good reason to move if they're going to move.
And if we don't find that reason, I don't think that we can fulfill their needs in this next home.
That's an excellent point. I had not thought about that, but yeah, the competition may not be other homes. It may be they're competing with their own home that they're already living in. That's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that.
And I don't have any like stats or data to back that up other than right now, people don't want to move because of how tough it is out there to buy a home and how expensive it is.
Sure.
So once we've kind of figured out, I would say like a skeleton of what they're looking for in their home, I like to walk through anywhere from 3 to 5 homes that are already built. It can be a model home and a couple spec homes. It can be, hey, let's walk through a condo, townhome, and single family. I want them to see things, feel things, walk through homes so that they can figure out what's not working about that home that they're living in now. Because sometimes they don't know. Like for me, I'm a big car guy, and it is dangerous when I get into a car that is nicer than the current car or truck that I'm driving. Because then I'm like, ooh, I really want that new truck. I love that new truck. The seat heaters, the massaging, like, probably want that.
Mm-hmm.
But ignorance is almost bliss until you know otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's how I work with buyers generally. Is I use what's called, I did not coin this term, it's not my term, but the funnel method of starting with every possible option for what's on the market: for sale by owners, new construction, foreclosures if there are any, as well as what's on the MLS, condos, townhomes, single family. We're going to start with everything, and then we're going to start eliminating things that they don't want, things that don't work, things they can't afford, whatever it is. And I feel like doing it that way, it eliminates this fear of like missing out on something that may be out there that, man, if we just done a little more digging, a little more research, we maybe would have found. And that's what I hear you saying about, we're in your community. Maybe they are convinced they want a single family home, but maybe we walk through a townhouse just to make sure, just to make sure that, okay, we're sure we want a single family home. We've eliminated townhomes. And maybe we're going to walk, maybe they tell you they want a 2-story with a basement. We're going to walk through a Rambler. You're going to take us through a Rambler just to make sure, not that we have to walk through, like you said, we don't have to walk through 30 different homes, but let's start eliminating some big categories for it. Let's eliminate the townhomes. Let's eliminate the Ramblers. Now we're focused on 2 stories. Now we can really dig into, okay, what size of 2-story, what price of 2-story. We're eliminating options that don't work so that we can make sure at the end, okay, it's this one, it's this model or this model. We know that both work. We know that both are in the price point. We know that both fit the style. And now it's a much easier decision for a buyer rather than, well, you know what? We didn't see that Rambler. I wonder if that would work for, we've eliminated that part of the decision-making process.
Yeah. And I really, really like to ask, usually once we've hopefully identified the home that fits them best, I'll say, hey, you know what? You like this floor plan, this location, price works. The next step is to sign the contract. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes people just say yes, right? Like we've identified the correct home for them.
Yeah. You've got the need.
Awesome.
You filled the gap of where they're at and where they want to be.
Yeah, exactly. But every now and then people will say, no, I'm not ready, which I think opens the door for you and I to continue asking questions.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, shoot, what's not working about this home?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I tell this story often. I had a buyer in 2019. It breaks my heart, but we did all the work.
Yeah.
We went and saw the 3 to 5 best homes. The first home they walked into, they loved, and they would have made an offer on it, but they felt like, their words, we found it too fast. And they sat on it for a night, and the next morning it was gone. It was under contract, and they haven't bought a home yet. They still haven't bought a home 5 years, 6 years later. And honestly, they're probably out of the market now because the first time buyer home they were looking for and the price point that fit them, it was gone 5 years ago.
Right.
And so I think if we can help people avoid that FOMO, but also like the paralysis analysis, I think that's agents. That's our biggest job, especially new construction.
Yeah.
Is helping them get clarity to the point where they don't worry about overanalyzing it, because we've helped them, guide them through. We've eliminated big swaths of options that now they can focus on. Okay, this is the house, this is the price point, this is the model, and now we're into the design center.
Yes,
what do you talk about with buyers as they're preparing to go choose their upgrades and their options so that they continue to have a great experience throughout this process?
So it seems like most people tend to spend anywhere from about 5 to 10% of the base price in upgrades. So if your home's $500,000, you're going to add about $25,000 worth of upgrades. Now, if you're in a single family community, larger lots, all that, right, you're going to be closer to that 10%. I don't want anybody to ever feel sticker shock, I think would be the term. So I try to go over a lot of the large upgrades that they're thinking about making and giving them the associated cost. So if they're like, hey, I want a 3rd car garage, say, all right, depending on your lot, you're going to be about $20,000 to $23,000. We've got to have 9-foot ceilings. All right, on this floor plan, it's X. We've got to have these things, and go item by item and help them kind of start putting the home together so that they can know how to budget.
Yeah, the last thing we want, and I always warn my clients about this, say, hey, look, you're going to go to the design center. It's going to be a great experience. It's going to be so much fun. Just know that when you're done going through, there's lots of parts of a house you probably have never thought about. How many fixtures do I want? How many sinks go in this house? And how many, all the hardware for the doors and all the things. I said, that all adds up depending on if you want to upgrade the fixtures and the hardware and, things like that. Yeah. And I tell them, don't be shocked. We talk about a budget going in because we want to know where the final price is going to be. I said, don't be shocked if the first time through this, you are over your budget. That's totally normal. But at the end, don't be shocked that you're over your budget. Yeah. And that's where we're going to start talking about, okay, do I need level 4 countertops or am I okay with level 3 countertops? And did that save me $5,000 there? Same thing with flooring or, whatever it may be. Because there's going to be some non-negotiables like we talked about, like with your dad's house. There's going to be some non-negotiables. Do I want the 9-foot ceilings? Do I want the 3rd-car garage? If those things are non-negotiable, we're paying for those.
Yes.
Things like countertops and flooring and hardware. I mean, maybe you don't want to hear this, but I told a client who was building a year or two ago, they wanted these amazing faucets in their kitchen sink. And as I said, honestly, go buy it at Home Depot. Just put one in that you're happy with. And if you don't love it 6 months from now, go to Home Depot and spend a couple $100 rather than $2,000 on this faucet or whatever it was. And I think there's areas where you can do that, but there's also areas where you cannot skimp if the 3rd-car garage or the 9-foot ceilings are important.
I tell everybody, do your structural first. So if you want the 9-foot ceilings, if you want railing is usually cheaper through the builder. If there's any windows you want to add, if you want to add a 3rd car, one that's coming up a lot lately is a basement entrance. So through Edge, it's usually anywhere from about $8,500 and $1,000, and that's concrete stairs down, a door, and a light. So fairly simple. I've got a client who just got a quote on the house they moved into. They decided against doing the basement entrance through Edge. Let's say it was $9,000. Not $9,000. The quote that they got was if they're going to remove a window, excavate and cut concrete, you're about $20,000. And if you're punching through just a whole new hole for a door, you're going to be 40.
Well, and then you're dealing with the city and setbacks and things like that. You're right. If you want that, pay for it up front. If you think you may want that, pay for that and move down a level on your flooring if you want. And this becomes like the mix and match. Okay, we want this needs and wants and what we're okay with. Yeah, and I don't want I want people to love their home. Yeah. But I also feel like our job is to help put things in context where, look, you and nobody is ever going to know the difference between level 3 and level 4 countertops.
I don't know the difference. Like
just visually and whatnot. Like, very few people are going to know the difference between those things. And yet your difference in cost may be thousands of dollars with that. Or for flooring. There's a lot of flooring throughout a house. If you want to go level 5 carpet versus level 3 carpet, that's great. Just know you're going to pay, $10,000-$15,000 perhaps for that difference. And again, this is where
you're going to want to replace that carpet in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Versus your basement entrance, which will always be there, or your 3rd-car garage, or like I said, these structural things. So I think that's a good example of that. Throughout the process, so we get the design center, we start building. What is your role through the process as a builder's agent once it starts to build, and how can a buyer's agent best work with you? Because I think sometimes a lot of agents unfortunately feel like we've signed the contract. If there is a design center, we've gone through it and now they're building and, hey, my job's done. Hey, Travis, let me know when the house is done so I can show up for closing and get paid and I'm out. But that's really not how it is or how it should be.
Agreed. So if it's a build, once we've finalized in the design studio, it's fairly hands off. Like most of the work that you're going to be doing from there on out is going to be just updating your clients. Edge has improved their systems a lot with this. We now have an app where the construction manager or the experience manager, we're kind of shifting a little bit, will update the buyers. I believe it's weekly or even just daily as tasks are completed on the home once construction started. But the space from finalizing and design to actually digging a hole in the ground depends on a couple different factors, but you're anywhere from 6 weeks to 12-ish weeks. That 6 to 12 weeks is probably the highest anxiety that the buyers are going to have because they're going to feel like nothing is getting done on their home. But we're drawing up plans, we're meeting with the city, we're submitting for permit, we're waiting for permit to come back. That alone has taken me, I think the longest I've had was 7 weeks, where we're just waiting for the city to go through their checklist.
That sounds like an expectations issue also with the buyer up front.
And that's exactly what I was just going to say is helping manage expectations in that is massive. Because there's not a thing that I can do. I've tried going and dropping donuts off. City employees work at their pace. And I'm not talking negatively about them. Like they've got other things that they are doing too. Once we've started digging, feel free to drive past as often as you want, grab pictures, ask me questions. Something that distinguishes a great agent from a not so great agent. Once we've finalized in design, they put their phone face down and
call me when I get paid.
Yeah, like I'm not saying that you have to know exactly what is happening every single day or even week, but drive past occasionally. Go walk through the home. Text me and say, hey, I'm going to walk through the home. I would love to meet you because I like hanging out with the agents that I work with. Let's walk through, and if there's something that is a glaring issue, bring it up to me. Bring it up to me. Don't alarm your buyers and be like, oh my gosh, guys, Travis, he said that there's going to be 2 pendant lights above the island. They're not there. I brought it up to him, but bring it up to me. Just be like, hey, curious about these pendant lights.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
I love the app. First of all, I had a client recently build in St. George, and they used the app. Loved it. That was my first time through new construction with the app. So easy to communicate with the project manager, with the builder's agent. Everybody's on the same page. I love that. It's like a glorified group text.
Yeah.
Was super helpful. I think you mentioned a good point, though. Like we can talk about what a 4-way walk is if someone isn't familiar with that. But that 4-way walk, as a buyer's agent, I better be on top of my game there, because again, I don't have to know everything about electrical or plumbing, but if they move something around specifically for them, for their home, hey, we want to make sure that light is over here and not over there, or there's can lights in this pattern in the family room or the master bedroom or whatever it is. We better know that. And maybe that's something that you and I go through ahead of the 4-way walk, so that when we're walking through the house with the project manager and our client, if we see something that's not what it should be, that we are there to advocate for our buyers that, hey, can we take a look at these plans again? Because I'm pretty sure we had this here or this there. And I feel like that's where a lot of agents start to fall on the job, is they don't take that 4-way walk seriously before the drywall goes up, and a lot of things can't be changed at that point without a significant cost.
Yeah. And there's always a good, better, best way to go about things. The shitty agents are typically ones that, hey, my client paid for lights and blah, blah, blah. They're right. Like they're causing a bigger scene than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. I have never once, let me make sure I'm not lying here. I've never once had a problem that was unfixable during a build. Mm-hmm. So don't get too worked up about it. Bring it up. We're going to get it fixed.
Yeah. I had a builder friend of mine once tell me, he said, oh, Rychen, we can do anything you want. It's just a matter of what it costs. And obviously there's different times of that. Like if, again, structurally, at some point you're done. You're done building something structurally. Like you're not moving it. You've got it permitted, all the things. But yeah, if there's a light in the wrong place or a switch you want moved or whatever else, like it can be done. We don't need to like hyperventilate over it. Just ask. Be a human being. And it's not because Travis or Ed was trying to screw you by putting the light in the wrong place, or weren't trying to cut corners because, they didn't put the switch there, or whatever it is that may be. Sometimes people get things wrong. Sometimes mistakes get made. Like it happens. And
we're human.
If we as buyer's agents are going to overreact to that, guess what's going to happen with our clients? They're going to take our overreaction and it's going to be multiplied. And all of a sudden we've got a fire on our hands that really all it needed was a quick phone call, some clarification, and a request order put in to get it taken care of. Yeah. I think that's, for me, that's like where I see the difference between a great buyer's agent and a good or bad buyer's agent is in how we react to things, especially when things, maybe there are errors and maybe they do things that need to be corrected.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. These are people building homes, right? We're all human. And there's a lot of things that go into building a home.
Yeah. It's overwhelming at times.
Yeah, it is. Tell me, what is the dumbest thing you have seen a buyer's agent make with new construction and their clients or working with you?
Dumbest mistake?
Or things that maybe kill deals or sort of create this emotion that doesn't need to be there.
I think when buyer's agents put their own beliefs onto the buyers, meaning...
Tell me more about that.
Not like religious beliefs, but like beliefs about homes. Mm-hmm. I had one agent who said, I would never buy a north-facing home. No, horrible. And I get it, right? Like I have a north-facing driveway right now.
Yeah.
Anytime it snows, it's going to be there long.
Yeah, you had to shovel it.
Yeah. It's not going to melt as easy as a south-facing driveway. However, the way that edge homes are built, for the most part, we've got giant windows on the back sides of the home. Huge windows, right? You've seen them. You've got them in your townhomes.
Yep.
The buyers specifically wanted a north-facing home so that their windows were always south-facing and got a ton of sunlight. Mm-hmm. So the buyers, they made a comment to me one time when we were walking through and the home was framed. They were like, it's really weird when our agent said that they would never, and emphatically said that they would never build a north-facing home because of the snow. We don't really care about the snow. We'll go out and shovel it with our kids. We don't mind. Plus, the driveway's not that big. Mm-hmm. But having the sunlight, and we were standing there in the sun in the winter, and they were like, this is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
The husband
I think that's a great example.
The husband said he was most excited for Sunday naps on the love sack in the sun.
With the sun coming in the south-facing windows. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great example of an agent potentially getting in the way of their buyer having a great experience and not understanding what was most important to their buyer. I mean, maybe you don't get down to a nitty-gritty, what's most important to you. Well, I just want to curl up on the love sack and take a nap in the Sunday afternoon with the sun coming in. Maybe you get to that level. I don't know. But yeah,
to me, that usually happens through the build, not in the initial appointment.
Yeah. But and you never want to, you're not the type of builder agent that's going to call out the buyer's agent in front of their client, obviously.
There's no need.
But that's a tough one, because you're watching that probably going, hey, like, have you asked them if what's important to them?
Right.
Yeah. Because you could go, you, Travis, as a builder's agent, could go agent, like, totally get that. Hey, let's go look at one that's south facing. You can see the difference. I mean, is that your job though? Or is that, obviously that might be helpful to appease the agent, but is that really your job for the buyer to show them the difference? Because if they've already said, hey, I like this home, I'm fine with the north facing, like, cool. Like, I don't need to see a south facing one.
I'll usually put it back on the buyers and just be like, oh man, Rychen made a great point. I've got a bad back, so I don't want to shovel my driveway all the time. Mm-hmm. Do you guys want to see a south facing home?
And look at the difference and point out the difference. Hey, like, yes, this one's south facing. The difference is your windows are going to be on the north side. What's important to you about this? Is it the snow melting quicker, or is it maybe having more light? And then maybe you get to that conversation of, we actually would really love the light coming through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's a good example of an agent maybe putting their own beliefs on what their buyer is looking for. Yeah.
And on a bigger scale that I'm seeing lately is buyers agents not showing new construction. And of course, I'm going to be biased, right? I'm a builder's agent. So of
that's
course,
your product. Yeah.
Homes. Historically, new construction made up about 12 to 13% of all homes listed. Today in Salt Lake and Utah County, it's closer to 35 to 38%. So almost over 1/3 of all homes are new construction homes. So realistically, you're going to be showing new construction. I would highly recommend figuring out where those builders are, who the builders agents are, mm-hmm. becoming familiar with that, especially if you work with a lot of first-time home buyers or younger, like millennial Gen Z buyers, because they tend to flock to new construction.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm a data person. I'm looking at the data always. And I've seen that up to, and I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's necessarily more new construction homes being listed by like raw quantity, or if it's the fact that you have a lot of these people that are locked into their rates and they're just not going to move quite yet. They will at some point. We all know they are going to at some point, but they're not there yet. And so it's overall, as things are down, inventory is tighter, and it's just there are more new construction homes relative to all the homes, because there are some people just, they're not going to list their home. And I agree with you. I have had my eyes open to new construction more in maybe the last 12 months than in maybe in the last couple of years. Yeah, when homes were going on the market right and left, it made sense. There were, like I said, 12 to 13% of the market. You didn't have to. You had plenty of homes to go look at. Yeah. But in one of my other episodes, you're not going to like this episode, but talking to would-be home sellers and, things that they need to be aware of is this thing I'm calling, phantom inventory, where a lot of builders are not putting all of their inventory on the MLS. But if they're going to go sell their home, let's say their $550,000 Rambler in Riverton that, maybe needs a refresh, needs some updates. They're competing with you as a builder for your single family homes that are maybe, $525,000 to $575,000 that are brand new with all the incentives builders are throwing at, buyers right now. Said it's phantom inventory because the seller doesn't see it on Zillow. They don't see it on the MLS, but buyers know it. Buyers know it's there, and they're comparing your outdated Rambler to everything around it within 30 minutes, within a reasonable price range, $50,000, whatever the budget may be. And I think that's where sellers need to be aware that if you're going to compete with new construction, you better be ready for a cage fight, because builders are offering incentives right now, and they're building brand new and you may or may not be able to pick your upgrades, and they know that the furnace and the AC and the roof and the water heater and all the big ticket items are brand new.
And under
I think
warranty.
that's, what's that?
And under warranty.
And under warranty. And I just think that that's something that sellers need to be aware of. And you got to put yourself in the buyer's shoes. Would a buyer come look at your house and give you this amount if they can go down the street to talk to you, Travis, and look through Edge Homes or another builder perhaps, and within a reasonable price range, get the same thing new? Now, I know people love their quarter acres in Riverton. Those are beautiful homes and beautiful lots. And that's going to be right for somebody. But for someone who's just like, hey, I just need a house that I love, that I don't want to think about things falling apart, and I don't want to deal with a remodel. And, maybe it's a little bit smaller yard, but there's some community amenities that I love. Again, as a seller, you're competing with this phantom inventory, in addition to the actual inventory being a higher percentage, because there are fewer homes resale wise on the market right now. I think that's an incredibly important point you made.
The Kempsey Gardner Institute say 72% of Utahns either have their home paid off or have a rate below 4%. Mm-hmm. Utahns being a thrifty people, especially if they've bought new construction in the last 5 to 10 years, mm-hmm. are oftentimes turning their condos, townhomes, even smaller single family homes into a rental because of that 4% rate and going and buying their new home. So they're building a rental portfolio and getting a new home, but they're not selling the old home. I think it's interesting to see how few homes are being relisted.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to get back to a regular cycle at some point.
Yeah.
At some point, it doesn't matter what your rate is. If your house is not the right house, it's too small, it's too big, it's in the wrong location, your job changed, whatever it is. And I think now that we're entering year 4 of higher rates here in about 2 weeks, I did a video on January 27th, 2022, when rates were still at 3.5%. I think it was 3.25% that day. And I said, hey, sellers, just so you know, I have no crystal ball, but I can look at the market. I can look at what's happening. This ain't lasting forever. If you're interested in selling your home and buying another one, now is probably the time. I didn't know that 60 days later on March 27th, rates would have jumped from 3.25% to 4.5% on their way to 8% by the end of the year. But that cycle, though, I think that gave people a lot of shock. That was a shock to the system. But now we're 3 years through that. We're entering the beginning of year 4 since rates have risen. At some point, people are going to realize that I can't live in this home. I don't care what the rate is. And that may be because they have consumer debt at 30% interest rates on their credit cards. Like, at some point, buying a new house at 6% or 6.5% and getting rid of all their high interest debt, or the house fits them better, at some point that's going to make sense. I do think we are starting to see that now as we get further and further away from the rate increases. But I just think buyers need to consider what's out there. Sellers need to consider what they're competing against. Talk about some of the incentives that builders are offering right now, either Edge specifically or in general, because I think that's a really big selling point to buyers also, that they may not be able to get from the resale market.
Yeah. And so right now, a lot of builders are doing, they partner up with their preferred lender and they do a bulk rate buy down. Right now, it's a 5.49 rate plus 3% seller concessions. Concessions are money that the seller gives to the buyer to buy your rate down, lower the price, pay closing costs.
So let's put that in context for a minute. If I'm going to go negotiate a deal on the resale market with somebody, to get to 5.49%, if I can with my own lender, it's probably going to cost me 2 to 4 percentage points just to begin with. And then on top of that, there's another 3% in concessions to do whatever you want with, pay to buy down the rate more, cover your closing costs, whatever it may be. I mean, we're talking in the range of probably, don't quote me, 5 to 7% worth of concessions for working with a builder and their preferred lender.
Yeah.
That's hard to get with a retail sale. And quite frankly, if you are under, I think it's 10% down payment, I can only go negotiate. No matter how well I negotiate, I can only negotiate a maximum of 3% concessions. If we're bringing you to Travis and Edge, specifically in this case, and we're looking at that, even if with a 5% down payment, we're essentially giving the equivalent of 5 to 7% in concessions, which we cannot get on the resale market.
No, that's $25,000 to $35,000 on a townhome, right? And what that does to your monthly payment is massive. So we just went from we used to have a 5.99 rate plus 3%. Now we're a 5.49, just that 0.5% on a $500,000 purchase. Keep in mind, again, I'm not a lender, so I'm not quoting numbers.
All the disclosures.
Yeah. That's going to save people typically $150 to $200 a month, just having that better rate. Same purchase price, same down payment, credit, all that.
Yeah. Again, this is why I warn sellers, hey, you better price your home correctly, because if you're not willing to give a buyer concessions, they're going to go walk down the street to Travis and get the same priced home with a payment that's a couple $100 less and everything's brand new. And I'm an advocate for sellers. I've had mostly listings in the last 12 months, but this is a very real conversation because buyers are being incentivized to come buy new construction, and it is the inventory that's available right now. And I think that conversation must be had. If you're a buyer's agent and you're afraid to go walk through a builder because you're afraid of the builder stealing your client or whatever this nonsense is you have built up in your mind, you're doing your clients a disservice, because there are incentives out there that are great for them. I mean, a 5.49 rate, use the other 3% to maybe, get a 2-1 buy down on top of that or something like that. Like you can't beat that. You can't match that in the resale market. Yeah. Travis, I appreciate you here. Give it on the way out here. Anything else you want to say? And then maybe just kind of wrap it up here with a tip or two for buyers and a tip or two from buyers agents that you wish everybody knew.
For buyers, it definitely matters who you hire to represent yourself. I see it time and time again where buyers come in with an aunt, a cousin, a family friend who does 1 or 2 deals a year, and the value that buyer's agent provides is very, very little. Mm-hmm. For me, I'm not going to let that negatively impact the buyer's experience, but other builders are not the same. If you hire somebody like a Rychen who knows what they're doing, who is actively studying and working to improve and understand real estate as a whole, not just their 4 homes in their neighborhood, they're going to have a better experience. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Mm-hmm. They're going to understand financing better. They're going to understand that, hey, doing a 2-1 buy down is more cost effective for you guys because of A, B, and C, rather than dropping the price, because dropping the price is not going to impact your monthly payment a ton. For buyer's agents, start learning how to work with new construction. Right now, it's massive. It is the most affordable way to buy a home from everything that I've seen. Sure, you've got seller financing options out there. A lot of people don't have money for that massive down payment. Whereas with new construction, there's programs that are 0 down. There's 5% down, 3%, 3.5%, 20% down programs, right? Buyer's agents should learn how to work with a builder, even if they're not friends with the builder, right? Mm-hmm. Get to know their contract. Please read the contract and understand dates and deadlines. Understand that it is very different than resale.
We didn't even touch on that. Most builders have their own contract, and if you're not familiar with that as a buyer's agent, you should be asking for that contract ahead of time. What are some of the main differences between, let's not even take a spec home. Let's say you're building a home. Maybe just touch on quickly some of the main differences between a new construction contract and our regular real estate purchase contract here in Utah.
Yeah. Earnest money, non-refundable within 7 days of contract acceptance. I don't even know what it is on the resale market, and it's probably negotiable.
It's typically by default, it's the financing and appraisal deadline, which is typically a week, maybe a couple of days before closing.
We don't have that. Most new construction does not have that.
Well, because let's talk about why that is. You're taking on the risk as the builder. You're going to build this house. You're financing it all along the way. You need to know that buyer is locked in from the beginning, particularly because I've talked to other builders about this. You're going to put options and upgrades into a home that this buyer is choosing. If they decide to walk away, that home may be so specific to them that it's going to be hard for you as a builder to go sell to somebody else. That deposit becomes literally their safeguard for, 1, keeping you in the contract, and 2, if you do bail and they have to reduce the price because you put in weird finishes and they have to now sell it for a lower price, it's protecting the builder, and they're financing your couple $100,000, potentially $1 million build for 8 months while they build it. So you guys build faster than that, but the point being, they're financing this along the way for you. Yes, they're going to require that your earnest money is hard if they're going to start building this for you.
Yeah. You're going to have construction deposits a couple of weeks after contract, and you're going to have options deposits again a couple of weeks after that contract acceptance. Mm-hmm. Those are non-refundable, and those become, that term is liquidated damages essentially.
Yeah.
Where that's what the builder takes as collateral for taking on all the risk.
Yeah. The other important part, I think maybe the most important part, other than people's money, which we just talked about in a new construction contract, is the deadlines, specifically the finish deadline. A lot of people get uptight sometimes if their agent is not helping them set correct expectations. The finish deadline. Hey, look, we're a long ways out from a build being done if you're building it from dirt. We got a lot of weather to go through in Utah before we get to that. We got a couple of seasons to work through. They can't give you a finish date when you're signing your contract. Don't ask.
Right.
And if you do ask, don't be surprised they tell you, well, we don't know, but it's probably going to be within in this range. And there's things that happen. There's delays with the city, with, for a while we had, lumber shortages and appliance shortages where homes were almost done, but we couldn't get ranges in, things like that. We were waiting 6 weeks for that. There's delays that happen. And if we're not, as buyer agents, making sure our clients are aware of that, they're going to get frustrated with us, with Travis, with the builder, and it's going to make it a stressful experience. And so I don't know what your contract says, but like, it's a pretty wide range. Like, you have up to X amount of days.
80 days from dig.
Yeah, from dig. And
So
some contracts are even
6 months.
longer than that.
Yeah.
There are other builders where I've seen literally it's like 18 months. We have 18 months to finish this house. That's not to try and screw you as the buyer. That's just, hey, we're trying to protect ourselves because there's things that we don't know that may happen here.
Yeah.
And when do buyers typically have this is the date it's going to be finished. This is the date we're going to sign. If you need to sell your house, be ready by then. If you need to get your financing order, be ready by then. At what point in the process do we have a really concrete deadline of when we're going to be done?
So I try to keep people updated weekly, bi-weekly, depending on dates and everything. Give them tentative dates. But when we're 45 to 60 days out, I'll text them and say, hey, it's probably time to start working on your financing. If they're working with a non-preferred lender, I usually lean closer to that 60 days. Just there's nuances with new construction that not all lenders know. So I want to give them a bigger buffer. Once we're about 3-4 weeks away from finishing, Edge will send out an email saying, hey, congrats, your home is almost finished. That's when it's set in stone. Like, hey, your closing date is this, and that is set in stone. I've never once had it move.
Yeah, so with buyer's agents, let's not hyperventilate if we don't have a closing date until maybe we're 4 or 5 weeks out. That's just how new construction goes. And if you're a buyer, let's not hyperventilate either. Let's plan ahead. If you've got a house to sell, I would rather. I'm in a situation right now with a client of mine. We put our home on the market that we need to sell way ahead of time, trusting that if we got in a situation where we needed to do a rent back before our new construction home was done, that would be less stressful than trying to put our home on the market and time the market and time our sale so that we lined up the purchase of the new construction home exactly. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. I'd rather sell early, find an Airbnb for a month, negotiate a rent back to stay in the home for a couple of weeks, whatever it is. Again, my role is to make this move as less stressful as possible for my client. But there's just some things we don't know until we get within 30, 45, 60 days out. I think that's an important point that I'm glad we touched on. Any last thoughts before we round up here? This has been great. We could talk another hour probably, but any last things we need to know? Buyers agents, things they should not be doing. Buyers, things they should be aware of and should not be doing.
Don't try and add fake value to your clients.
Tell me more about that.
For example, if you're in the orientation or the blue tape walk just a couple days before closing, don't come in and just be like, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Like, come in and be an advocate for your buyer. Absolutely. But don't come in trying to prove that the builder sucks and that you're the best, because that's going to make the builder's agent not want to work with you. It's going to make your buyers be like, well, shit, where were you the last 8 months of the build?
I'm buying a crappy house here.
And then it's going to make the builder feel like this builder's agent is just talking trash on us the whole time, and we're paying them 3% for what? Like, come on, man.
And where have you been the last 8 months?
Yes. So be with your buyers throughout the entire transaction, and it'll pay dividends. Yeah.
Love that. And don't add, and I think that goes for, hey, agents, what Travis just said goes for more than just new construction. No fake value adds. No fake value. Be authentic, be helpful, but don't be trying to create value where there isn't value there, or creating problems just to make yourself look like you're adding value. Hate that. I love that you brought it up, and hate that.
Yes. And I will always try and make you look like the hero. And not that I will ever be the bad guy, but if things get delayed, I typically try and convey that to buyers so that it's coming from me, not from you. Whereas if I'm trying to think, there's one.
But if the buyer's agent is just being a jackass, then you're probably going to like, hey, we're delayed. This happened. Make sure you let your buyer know.
Yes. But I will always try and make you look like the hero to your buyers. If you feel like you aren't providing value or feel like the buyers don't like whatever, right? Give me a call and I will make you look like the hero.
Love that. Travis, I appreciate you. This has been great.
Thanks.
Where can people find you if they have questions? If agents have questions about Edge Home or buyers reach out, where can they find you?
My phone number, 801-472-7159. Give me a call, shoot me a text.
Yeah. And we should mention that as an Edge agent, since we're talking with you as an Edge agent, you can sell in any community. You're not tied to any one community. So you have access to all the inventory, all the things that are coming up. And that's, you guys are down from Mapleton to you're starting a product in West Valley, right? Is that north to south? Is that kind of the boundaries you guys are in right now?
Yeah. We've got 10 new communities coming this year, so we're going to have inventory. It's very diverse inventory. Mm-hmm. We've got only single family home communities coming up this year with no HOA. We've got just condos and townhomes, just townhomes. We've got everything. I would be hard pressed to find a different Edge agent that spends more time in Edge Homes communities than myself.
And you live in one.
Yes, I live in one and I walk it every single night. Like, I know what inventory is here and what the neighborhood lives like.
Yeah, love that. So buyers agents, if you need help, even if it's just a weekly email from Travis of what's coming online, reach out to him, take him to lunch, have him take you to lunch. He golfs also.
Not very well, but I do.
Yeah, we have a good time. We're both not very good, but we enjoy that. So no, Travis, I appreciate you. This has been super helpful. I've got an entire page of notes here that I've taken. And so I appreciate your insights and hope that was helpful for you as well. If you've got comments, questions, drop them in the comment section and we'll get them answered. And if this has been helpful, share with a friend. And if you want more information about new construction, look through our other episodes on our YouTube channel, on the podcast. We've got lots of information there for sellers, for buyers, new construction, resale, all the things that are going on in the greater Salt Lake market right now. Travis is an expert in new construction, and I appreciate you coming on. And we will see you next time on House Money.